This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
The middle,
oh, that's
just
two
for
pass.
James. Across the ball on Dominic James. Right circle, Hagel. Shoot, score! Hagel! He snuck it under the glove of Logan Thompson. On a counter, Brandon Hagel has made it 3-2 Lightning with 11:18 left.
Yeah, I thought we got it out. I wouldn't say we were perfect by no means, but obviously come back. Long travel day yesterday, 3-hour time change. These are kind of games that show what type of team you are, and you really got to bring everything that's left in the tank. So I thought we did a good job at that, and I thought everyone kind of bought into that. Let's grind this one out, get 2 points, and then we have a few days in between games.
I don't see anything wrong with a little grind and the Tampa Bay Lightning getting it done over the Caps. They've won 7 of their past 8. I think should be noted that maybe sometimes it doesn't feel like that, and it is Power Lunch on Lightning Radio. Dave Mishkin with me, Greg Linnelli. We go for a full hour at Bolts Radio. Reef Rum coming to you in just a bit. But I want to get into the I don't want to call it a win streak, but 7 of 8 is a nice streak. And
necessary streak after starting 1-4-2.
Were we talking about on the show all of these days? They at this point for me, partner, they kind of blend together. It's that the American Thanksgiving is when a lot of people traditionally will look at things and they'll say,
I'm not sure if that holds as much.
It may not.
Water.
It may not, but
maybe it does. The standings are so bunched, though. I mean, in the East, I think I looked. There may be one team, Buffalo, that's 1 game under Hockey 500. If you have that many teams at or above Hockey 500, you're going to have a bunched up situation in the standings. So American Thanksgiving is what, a couple of weeks away. I mean, how much will the standings really change? Yeah, thank you, Steve. Buffalo is 1 game under, and they may not be 1 game under by the time we hit American Thanksgiving. The West is a little different. Like Calgary is just, I mean, Calgary might be out of the playoffs at this point. Like, that's how far down they are. And they were tied for the final wild card spot last year. That is a huge disappointment out West that honestly hasn't gotten my attention very much because I haven't played the Flames. I've been focused more on what's happening with the Lightning. But they're kind of the outlier team. I mean, most other teams, certainly in the East and in the West, are hanging in there. So I don't know how much we'll be able to read when we get to Thanksgiving from the standings. This year especially.
Maybe not. But certainly better than where they were at the beginning of the year. And I think
that's Lightning, for
the
sure.
Lightning.
I mean, think the Lightning could have been, if they hadn't turned it around, where Calgary is. I mean, maybe not quite that far down, but other teams are taking care of business to at least consistently get points. You have to be able to, as they say, keep up with the Joneses. And the Lightning have not only done that, they've actually jumped ahead of some teams.
Sure. You know, they win this game basically without the services of Ryan McDonough. I think everybody kind of holding their breath a little bit because you understand what he means to the back end. But, you know, kind of like when we discussed a bit with, you know, Kucherov starting to figure some things out, Braden Point getting a goal a couple of games ago, that maybe is that going to jumpstart him? You know, maybe time will tell, partner, to a degree. But I think, you know, is this a game that, you know, Victor Hedman is able to build off of a little bit? And he had the big shot that was tipped in by Jake Gensel to make it 2-1. But more importantly, and I didn't realize this, and maybe we can get into this later, when Tom Wilson was running around, particularly late in the game, and they had that scrum, it might have been towards maybe 10, 15 seconds left. I have to go back and check.
He wasn't available for the Caps in the last, when they had the goal taken away for the offside.
That's right.
Wilson had been given a misconduct. I mean, there wasn't a lot of time left, but I'm sure the Caps would have liked to have had him for the last 15 seconds.
And I think you and Phil mentioned this. He was probably the best player on the ice.
Yeah.
I mean, he was really
for
impactful.
much of the game, I think he was.
Of the game.
Yeah.
But when he was running around late, it was Victor Hedman who stepped in, and Brian Engblom, who was ice level, said, you can tell when guys are bluffing about fighting, and you can tell when guys are serious. And he said Hedman came over, gave him a little nudge, and he was ready to go. And you know as well as I do, Tom Wilson, you've got to have a little bit extra something if you want to step into that ring and fight that guy. But my point was, Hedman, maybe there was a fire even more so burning in his game last night or a couple of nights ago. Gets the assist, felt like was a little more impactful, but also maybe that edge where he stepped in as the captain and said, enough. Now, it's not going to deter, I don't think, Tom Wilson from doing that. But when you have your leader go in there, willing to say, all right, I don't really fight. My last fight actually was in 2019. I think they looked it up. That probably speaks louder in that locker room than we think. But maybe more importantly for Hetty, is this a game where at least he can start to build off of a little bit more? And maybe we do.
Look, he got pulled off the top power play unit. So what are you going to do about it? Yeah. And since he's been pulled off the top power play unit, he's chipped in 2 power play assists. Now it's been when the second unit has come out, at least in part, because Kucherov stayed out. Kucherov scored the goal on the goal that they scored in Vegas with Hedman and Hagel out on the ice as part of Unit 2, and it was Gensel who scored it against Washington, but it was in the latter part of the power play, which is why they'd made that change. And that's what you want to see. Yep. Right? You want to see a response. You want to see good plays being made. We've talked about Victor bombing away and sometimes missing the net. Gensel tipped that, but it would have been on net.
It would have.
Had Gensel not tipped it. So he got it to where he needed to get it. It had a lot of mustard on it. And, I mean, the Caps had some mistakes. Gensel was left open, but Gensel still has to get a stick on that puck and tip it to a place where it will still go in the net, and it did. So, yeah, I thought that was, the power play is looking better. I don't know what I was thinking when we did the show after the Vegas game, because apparently I was saying that one goal they scored was a second after a power play ended. Apparently it was the second before the power play ended. So the Lightning actually had gone 3 for 3 in the power play, would have gone 4 for 4 had the Kucherov empty net goal not got taken away. So they're 3 for their last 4. But the one at the end of the game, it was an important power play because it put the Caps shorthanded with whatever it was, a minute 34 left when they were down by 1. But the previous 3 were all huge goals the Lightning scored. So maybe this is a sign that the power play is starting to get some life. And Hedman right now is not on the top unit, but he is contributing. That is a very good sign. So 7-1 in the last 8. I think up until the road trip, the 3-game road trip, the Lightning, for the most part, were outplaying their opponents. And we could look at the shots for, shots against. In most instances, they were out shooting their opponent. They were out attempting their opponent. We had those second periods, I think 3 in a row, where the other team got 2 shots, 3 shots, 4 shots. That was it. The Lightning were really putting their stamp on those games. And it was needed after they started 1-4-2. That got them going. They headed out west. We knew it was going to be a tough road trip. It's tough to just keep dictating the action for the majority of every game. And when you're on the road, sometimes you have to do it a little bit more by hook or by crook. They had some moments on the road trip where they weren't at their best. I mean, I think they did get outplayed in Colorado, and they had a objectively bad first period in Vegas. I thought they played okay in Utah, but that was, I think they deserved to win that game, but it was closer. It was a close game, and I think the margin in terms of which team was better than the other was also close. But they kind of rebounded in the Vegas game. We talked about that after that game. So what happened on Saturday? It was going to be tough for the Lightning to come into a game like that and be able to dictate things from beginning to end.
Right.
It was not quite the same as the second half of a back-to-back on the road against a rested opponent. I mean, Washington came in having traveled. The Caps were playing their third game in 4 nights. But I think there was a difference between what the Caps had, which was the beginning of a road trip, and where the Lightning were coming back after flying cross-country and switching time zones, which was an extra hour because we moved the clocks back right at the beginning of that road trip. So this was going to be more of a heavy lift, and you're going to get games like this in the schedule. Often they don't happen when you're at home, but this was a situation where it did happen when they were at home, you know how I feel about the Capitals. I think they have an excellent team. I mean, there may be some teams that are punching above their weight class right now in the East. We'll see if that's the case. I think the Capitals, for some reason, are punching under their weight class. They're going to have to figure out some stuff. Their special teams have not been good, and they're not getting enough goal scoring. But the fundamentals of their team, like they have the best 5-on-5 ratio by far in the NHL. They have great goaltending. Logan Thompson, it was the first time all year he'd allowed more than 2 goals in a game.
Right.
Their decor is fantastic. Like, they should be better record-wise than where they are, and I think they know it. I think I had written down they had 1 win in their last 6 coming into the game. So they were motivated to play well, and they're a good team. I think we saw that on the ice on Saturday. So this was going to be a game for the Lightning where it was kind of like Brandon Hagel said. They had to game it out however he put it. And a mark of a team is when, you have some circumstantial things going against you. And I think they were more against the Lightning than they were against the Capitals in this game based on the travel and the time zone and first home game back after a long road trip. Caps were looking at 1 win in the last 6. They were extremely dialed in to try and turn that around. For the Lightning to win that game in regulation is an impressive win. So cosmetically, it's not going to look like when they beat Vegas at home.
Right.
Not at Vegas, or they beat Dallas at home, where they decisively outplayed the other team, ran into a hot goalie, and needed overtime to win it. Final shots in the game on Saturday were 30-19 Washington. Shot attempts on Saturday were 60-43 Washington. I think that's fairly consistent. I think the Lightning had to do the game on Saturday a little bit by hook or by crook to get it across the finish line. But they did it. And to your point, they did it without Ryan McDonough in the final 40 minutes. They also did it in a game in which, they see a lead go away late second. They're tied in the third, and they're the team that scores the big goal. How many times has that happened over the course of this 7-1 stretch?
Yeah.
There have been a lot of games where the Lightning have either been tied in the third and they score the go-ahead goal. They're up in the third. They lose the lead. They get it back. They're up in the third. They lose the lead, but they don't fall behind, and they win in overtime. And this was another one, tied going into the third. That was a bugaboo at the start of the year. I know we had talked about it, like me specifically. I was like, you're tied going into the third. You have to get points out of that game. And the Lightning let some games early this year slip away. Now they've reversed that. They have picked up points in all of these games. The one game they lost, they were down by 2 going into the third. So it wasn't tied. They had to rally. Like, they kind of lost that game earlier in the game against Colorado. The other 7 games, many of these games have been close, and they have made the key play in the third period to turn a tie game into a game in which they lead and then win. And 2 games in a row now, Hagel has scored the goal to break a tie in the third period that has given them the lead and turned out to be the game winner. So I thought that there was some very impressive grind it out. That was what Hagel said, right? Like, they did grind it out. It was one of those games. And as you often say, Greg, never apologize for 2 points. They shouldn't apologize for these 2 points, understanding the circumstances. They were not as buttoned up as they have been in some other games. But who cares, right? I mean, this was... Great. That's why they say that first home game back after a long road trip is tricky. The Lightning navigated through it. They got 2 more points to put in the bank. Now they get a few days to kind of rest up, get reacclimated to the Eastern time zone, hopefully heal up as well. And they have the weirdest team in the NHL coming in on Wednesday, the New York Rangers, who literally cannot win at home and are almost unbeatable on the road. We'll get into them as we get closer to game time. But those are my initial thoughts from Saturday's game.
It's a great point, and I will say this as well. I don't like when people say this because we assume that people listening to this show aren't knowledgeable, and I think we have a very knowledgeable fan base. But I think collectively, household names around the league, I think within the circles, people know how great of a player Jake Gensel is. But I think, when you start talking to the average fan, is Jake Gensel coming off the tip of your tongue in terms of
Caps
the
fans
top 20?
don't like Jake Gensel. I mean, I've seen the numbers. He kills Washington. This is going back to his Pittsburgh days.
They should not like him because
Yeah.
he does pound them. But he's pounded a lot of teams. He's almost, I think, a point per game guy.
Yeah.
And in his career, he's been phenomenal. But look at the plays he made on the first 2 goals. The one's a pass. The next is a tip. He had, what was the pass on a 2-on-1 with Braden Point where he passes the puck between
Thompson
the defenders?
made a great save. It was
Was
not
it
an
Chikrin?
easy pass. Well, he got the
Chikrin who was
pass
the defender?
through.
He did,
I think
but
it
was
might have been
Chikrin?
Chikrin.
Yeah.
Chikrin defended it well. I think so. Gensel wanted to pass it earlier and couldn't, so he held on to it.
Right.
Usually, once you hold on to it, it's gone. Like you can't get that puck back across, and he was able to do it.
No doubt. But I mean, he does everything really well, and he is a special player. The reason he doesn't get a lot of the accolades at this point, in my opinion, he's not 6'2", 220. He's not known for the hardest shot. He's not known as the fastest skater. I mean, he's not a centerman. And, so there's just some things that you, with the eye test, you're like, that guy. When you think of taking over the game, you think of Kucherov with his skill and the way he orchestrates things on the ice. Point with his blazing speed and dynamic playmaking ability. Hedman with the big shot. Gensel, it's just like, I'm a really good player and I do a lot of things well.
Yeah.
And boy, are the Lightning glad to have a guy like that on their team. That jumped out a little bit. Also, too, from a physical perspective, Chernak at the end of the game, dropping the gloves a little bit. I mean, that was another one of those moments
With
like
Chikrin.
stop with
After
Chikrin.
the game was over, yes.
Yeah, like, hey, all right. Because we've had a lot of people.
Chikrin was ticked.
Yeah. And I got to be honest, I don't know if.
I really like Chikrin. Like
He's a
guy
player.
you would want on your team. He's a great player, and you could see the fire in his belly. He's like, we lost again. Like he just
He's fired.
So look, he was irritated, and
that happened.
That was one of those that was not scripted. Like we talk about scripted fights.
Yeah.
That was the heat of the moment. Certainly, the game was over.
And I don't
but
know.
Chernak whooped him. I mean,
he did. And I don't even know if Chikrin's a fighter, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure he's dropped the gloves. We'd have to go back and look. I mean, he's a strong guy. I mean, that was his physical attributes. I remember, for whatever reason, this stood out because he's been in the league now for 10 years?
Yeah.
I mean, when he came out, they kind of do the combine, like he was put together then as a team. Like, and they talked about his workout regimen and how physically fit he is. I mean, he's a strong guy, but he got whooped on pretty good. I mean, there's no doubt. And Chernak, certainly answered that call. Look, McDonough going down too, that's probably, a situation where you had to do some mixing and matching on the back end.
And that it was a game in which you're going to have to defend your way to points.
100%.
And you're taking out your best defensive defenseman. And the guy who slotted in, so they dressed 7. Once McDonough left, they were down to 6. So they basically just went to 3 pair for the most part. And Destu took McDonough's spot and was a regular partner with Chernak, and I thought he had a whale of a game. And Phil made him a star. Now he had 2 assists.
Yep.
Did he have 2 assists? Yeah, he had 2 assists. But it wasn't the assists so much. It was, I don't want to speak for Phil, but I think that's why Phil made him the star that he did, number 2 star, because he picked up a huge load of responsibility and just like water off a duck's back. It didn't seem to bother him at all. Slotted right in.
And you're right about that. I mean, he's continues to be fantastic. And we talk about this competition and what is this looking like on the back end. Stu has basically said, you're not taking me out of the lineup. Now, they could, of course. But in terms of his play partner, to me, that's been pretty impactful. I will also say this, because I think in fairness, we've been talking about the fact that he's not playing, and that was Jack Finley. And more so that, look, he was willing to engage Tom Wilson. He just was. I mean, Wilson had, some, pretty impactful hits.
He did.
In that game.
He hit Pontus Lindbergh. Yeah.
Well,
and Hagel. Yeah.
Crushed
Hagel into the crossbar, but I said Lindbergh. Holmberg.
Yeah.
Pontus Holmberg, he hit Holmberg very hard. I think it was in the first period. Clean check, though. Remember he hit Moser in the game in Washington.
And Moser popped back up pretty well.
And so did Holmberg. Yeah. But, like, Wilson doesn't fight that much anymore, but he is making his, like as you called him, a very unique player. Yeah. That is one way in which, you know, he can use his size and his strength and his skating ability to intimidate. I mean, he can intimidate based on how he fights, but he can also intimidate when he's like a locomotive coming in on the forecheck, and he is not going to let up when he has a chance to deliver a hit.
This is a separate note. I would absolutely make him part of my team. Team Canada. I mean, I know Olympics.
He wants
to
be part of that team.
I just think, you know, if you get a disciplined Tom Wilson, and when I say just you're not out there running around. I mean, part of me says, look, he's going to be the best on best. But that physical element, particularly against other skilled players, can be a huge weapon. Plus, he's skilled himself. But my point was, Finley engaged him a couple of times, and I give credit. He was talking to Wilson. In between
it was after the Hagel hit. He jumped on top of him.
He jumped on. I mean, like, look, that takes a certain amount of you-know-what to do that because there's a chance Wilson turns around and says, let's go. You know, and Finley, big boy, nice to see him rise to that occasion.
Yeah. So, you know, the Lightning were looking for him to help in the faceoff circle. He did not have a good night in the circle. He went 2-7. But in his defense, how long has it been since he's played? I think since the last Washington game.
Hasn't played
10 games.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so that's a tough assignment.
He's in a tough spot. He really is. Because
I think I had said when Cirelli got injured in the Vegas game, the at Vegas game, and like if he can't play Saturday, look for Finley to come in because you're slotting in a center for a center.
You did.
We didn't even touch on this on the show today. So it does sound like Cirelli is close to, I mean, he's day-to-day.
Yeah,
and
he's
Coop,
like all
I
of
think,
us.
said Wednesday.
Yeah.
Crozier, they finally got an update out of John Cooper, they being the reporters. So that sounds like it's day-to-day. So that's very positive because Crozier didn't play in the last 2 games, and we hadn't seen him on the ice either. But, you know, the McDonough situation, we'll have to wait and see. They didn't have an update on him. But if Cirelli returns, unfortunately for Finley, I think it probably means that he's back to watching. He's
caught up in a numbers game.
He's caught up in a numbers game.
He just is, and he's not a player.
Unless there's somebody else that you know, there are a few guys who took body maintenance days yesterday, so we'll see. Holmberg did take a huge hit from Wilson and did not practice yesterday, so we'll see.
That was a big boy coming at you, and we acknowledge that. Finley is just not, his skill set is such that he's not dynamic like a Dominic James, where if he plays 5 or 6 minutes, there's a chance James can do something. That's just
and the
Finley's
Lightning
not game.
stayed out of the box, which was a very good sign. I know Washington's power play has struggled, but that would have been a situation maybe where we would have seen Finley more.
Correct.
As it is, they were only shorthanded for 2 minutes. And, yeah, Finley didn't get out there during that kill. So there was only – well, Washington had 3 faceoffs on the power play, but Finley didn't take any of them. So
yeah. It is interesting when you talk about the young players and what they're doing, but it was good to see Finley at least get that opportunity. Do you want to get to some questions here, or did you have anything else you wanted to observe?
Just a quick note on James, because just like Hagel has scored the eventual game-winning goal, breaking a tie in the third period for 2 straight games, James is the guy with the primary assist on both those goals, so 4 points now in his last 2, but he came back after getting hit in the face with a puck. And I mean, this is just another, so we say chapter, probably not a chapter, but another note that we can add to this guy's storyline. Like, he is just a player. I mean, how much time did he miss? Hardly any at all for a guy who got hit in the face with a puck. I mean, I'm not sure if he was cut, he needed stitches. He did not come back with the full shield, which is good. But he got hit in the second period. He was back on the ice before the second period ended. And then he made the play. Or he had the assist, I should say. But it was a nice play. Like, he crisscrossed with Hagel, and, you know, Hagel got to a scoring area and shot it in.
Bold prediction? I've kind of thrown it out there, but I think he goes the second line when Paul comes back. Does not look out of place. does not.
He did
look
play
in
second
place.
line center, though, because Cirelli was not available.
But I think Cirelli,
see.
look, I mean, it gives you some options there, too, with Cirelli and James if you want to at the center position. I just think he has shown, and I think he can bring it out in Cirelli and Hagel even more. Look, and Cirelli's gotten off to a tremendous start. Hagel's pointing. I mean, I think that line could be humming and complementing the first line. And all of a sudden now you've got two lines that are really dynamic. And then your third line can be driven by Paul, Gonsalves, and Bjorkstrand. And there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. You have two 20-goal scorers, former 20-goal scorers on that line. Gonsalves feels like maybe he's starting to see his game get better. And if the fourth line stays the same, I think you're starting to figure out, okay, these are my 12. These are my 12, and we can rotate other guys in depending on the matchup. Obviously, injuries. Douglas, we're going to see some time, I'm sure, coming up against the Panthers and anybody else who maybe crosses the line potentially in their play. And then the back end, look, I think it's pretty clear that Radish is the odd man out to a degree. I think John Cooper just has to figure out, are we better at 12 and 6?
Yeah, but now he's found a little spot for himself on that first power play unit, which has helped. Now, he was not out there for the Gensel goal, but I think they like how the unit is operating. Washington actually did a fairly good job against the first unit. They were very aggressive. They got some clears, but at the end of the night, the Lightning scored on the power play, the one they had in the first period to grab the lead. It was a big power play goal that they scored because they didn't get a lot of chances. So, I mean, basically they went 1 for 1. And then they got that penalty called at the end of the game on Karlsson, which was a penalty, but you don't always see that penalty called in that situation because it was late in the third period. The hook led to a turnover and it basically would have been an in-alone chance for Dylan Strome. So that is, I think, why the referee called the penalty. But sometimes referees don't call that penalty.
Sure.
They're like, you just need to battle through because we're in the last 2 minutes of regulation of a 1-goal game.
Yeah.
Before we get to questions, I just want to say, and this is a compliment to Washington, I thought Washington handled that late penalty kill, trying to tie the game, about as well as you could. I mean, it started with a defensive zone draw. What time was that penalty? 1:38 on the clock. You're down 1. You're shorthanded for the rest of regulation. You have to get the puck down the ice, pull the goalie, maintain possession, and somehow score. And they did just about everything they could, short of getting a tremendous scoring chance. They had some looks. I'm not sure any were like super dangerous, but I mean, you're trying to generate 5-on-5 with the net empty. And I thought they did a magnificent job. I mean, I think it was Dowd won the first faceoff. They got it down the ice and retrieved it. They got the puck back. And I think they had 3 shots on net while shorthanded.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were given 3 shorthanded shots. Those all came at the end of the game. And then, of course, the Lightning thought they had won the game or sealed it with the Kucherov empty netter. That was an automatic review. 2 goals now Kucherov has not gotten because he is barely offside, but it was the right call. And even then, there's like 15 seconds left, face off in the neutral zone on the cap side of the red line. They still got it. I think there was an offside right away. Ovechkin went offside, but then they had another face off. They got it in again. Remember, Hedman tried to rim it around the glass and it went out of play. They had another face off. Like they were, the Caps did about as well as you could do to cobble together the tying goal, which is probably another reason why Chychrun was so frustrated at the end of the game. But that's why it was a little bit of a grind it out sort of game for the Lightning. I think under normal circumstances, the Lightning would have just sealed that thing up. Like, you got a power play, 1:38 left. You're not giving up 200 feet of ice. You're not chasing around in your own zone without the puck. You're executing to get out. They fumbled the puck away a couple of times when they had it before Kucherov had that empty netter that was taken away. So I think that was just kind of a microcosm of what they were dealing with, which, again, I think was a lot circumstantial.
That's fair.
By Wednesday, I would expect them to be cleaner in some of the execution, honestly. But the fact that the execution sometimes wobbled a little bit didn't hurt them. Vasi had a weird game because probably the 2 goals he allowed are ones that he normally stops, but he made up for, and I will say this, with a handful of key saves where he helped the Lightning when they did wobble. And at at the end of the night, he allowed with two goals against. That's all he allowed.
And the Carlson one, unfortunate too, because you had noted on the broadcast, Carlson's got a huge shot, but
he does.
Chernak also hit that in. You could tell he was trying to clear it. I mean,
right. He's feeling pressure. There's a guy coming, trying to jam it in. He's trying to. It's like walking with the egg at the picnic, right? You want to go quickly, but not too quickly, delicate, and he knocked it into his own net.
But other than that, he was fantastic. I mean, that was
Vasi,
Yeah, Vasi was fantastic.
He made a couple of saves on Wilson alone that were very, very tough saves.
Yeah,
Wilson was in the clear. I think one was a breakaway and one was a 2-on-1. He stopped both of them.
He was very good. Tonight, enjoy some Refrum. Smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a tropical wave or a lightning mule and taste why fans are switching. Refrum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Refrum by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly. All right, do we want to get to some questions, partner? Let's break it all down with them. Alan says, the team seems to be firing on all cylinders. Team chemistry is undeniable. When Paul comes back, I hope Cooper puts him at right wing on the Sorelli line and keeps James at center on the third line. He's got third in quotation marks.
Well, Coop is like, why are you calling it this line, that line? So now I noticed Ben Pierce, who I think asked that question, is very careful just to call it a line. That is contrary to what you have advocated, where you like to see James on the second line and Paul centering the third line. We'll see.
I mean, either way.
Paul is close.
Option. Yeah.
Paul is very close.
Yeah. Could it be maybe Wednesday? We don't know.
It could be. And so, there's been some hand-wringing about, like, roster spot, who's going to go down, and this, that, and the other thing. Well, if Crozier is day-to-day, I don't think they're going to put him on IR. But we'll see what happens with McDonough. If McDonough does have to go on IR, they could activate Paul without
that's a good
point. Corresponding move.
Yeah. Tampa Bay says, did someone steal Braden Point's powers?
Yeah, we were hoping that he would build on really a highlight reel goal in Colorado, and it just hasn't happened for him. Now, Thompson did rob him on that play that you referenced in the first period, but I would say still it was kind of a quiet game for Point.
The good news is they're winning right now.
Yeah.
Despite Point not averaging a point per game. I mean, that's just kind of where he is. Mm-hmm. Eventually, you hope these guys get back to where they've been. I think that's fair to bring that up. Thomas says, I really feel like Julian found another diamond in the rough with Destu. Guy was erasing mistakes by others all game.
Look, it's hard to argue with that. I mean, I don't know if he was always erasing
mistakes. Is he the human eraser?
I remember many, many years ago when Mike Babcock was coaching in Detroit, he referred to Danny DeKeyser as the eraser. This was the first time I'd heard that as like a nickname, right? It's like Danny DeKeyser, he's the eraser. He erases everybody else's mistakes. Look, Destu was just solid. Like, I thought some of it, maybe, he did erase others' mistakes, but some of it was like his responsibility, and he made the play. He checked a guy and separated the guy from the puck, or he had the puck and was feeling some pressure and, moved it up and got it out of a dangerous situation. He's a complete player. I think that's what we're saying, and maybe that was the knock against him earlier in his career. Admittedly, I never saw him play earlier in his career. But, he himself has said, I was labeled, and maybe not incorrectly, as an offensive defenseman. There is no question that he is a well-rounded defenseman now at the NHL level. I mean, he's not just well-rounded at some other level. He is a well-rounded defenseman at the highest level and showing it every single game.
It's incredible. It goes to show you scouts make mistakes too.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if we can call a guy a diamond in the rough who's won 4 top defenseman awards in 4 different leagues, including 2 in a row the last 2 years. So I think there probably were a fair number of teams that were I'm sure they were all aware who he was.
Why didn't anybody pull the trigger to give him a better deal?
Well,
a better deal.
He was a free agent, so he chose the Lightning. I don't know how many other teams offered him a contract, Maybe
but
there
even
was
before,
only one team.
Yeah, I'm talking
know.
about before. Like, I mean, the way that people, that scouts have all of the video and the analytics. We talk about
Yeah.
analytics, and you're not at least seeing that this guy is dominating at one level. Aren't you at least intrigued to bring him in and see what you have? Particularly these teams that are struggling defensively. Take a flyer on the guy.
Yeah, that's what he would say too.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, when I talked to him about it, he was like, after I won the war last year, I said to my agent,
Yeah,
like,
right.
what more do I have to do?
I mean, that's a good point by him.
Yeah.
It's a good point by him. Lucas says, everyone seems to be coming around, but you need to see consistency. Gage had a nice game. Hopefully he doesn't disappear for the next few. Also, Bjorky needs to shoot. He doesn't make $5.4 million to pass.
Well, he has a very good shot, Bjorkstrand. What I've noticed about him is if he doesn't have a chance to shoot, he will not just shoot and try and like ram it through traffic. He shoots when he has an opportunity to get it to the net. And sometimes he's not in a position to get it to the net.
Right.
So I think then the next step would be get open where you can get it to the net. He did join me after the Vegas game, the at Vegas game, because I think we had agreed it was his most impactful offensive game, not just because he had 2 assists, but he was more noticeable in terms of what he was doing offensively. And he talked about moving his feet. I mean, you hear that from a lot of players, but maybe that's part of it for him.
Move your feet.
The Lightning didn't generate a ton of scoring chances against Washington, though. As I said, they only had 19 shots on net. And some of that is that Washington defends very well. Some of it was the Lightning did get some looks early in the game. Thompson made some saves. And they also scored, right? I mean, the Lilleberg goal was a chance. He was wide open in the slot. But they didn't get as many chances after maybe the first 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And so it was going to be one of those games where, they got their 2 first period goals. They didn't generate a lot after that, but they got the winning goal in the third period. And honestly, so Washington definitely made some mistakes early in the game where the Lightning got some odd mans and they got some looks and guys were open. I think Hagel might have been open in the slot that Thompson made a save on him. Or it actually hit Finley. Remember that one? Mm-hmm. Hagel was open, took a shot, it hit. It was like friendly fire, but I mean, he was wide open in the slot. The point Gensel 2-on-1, the Lilleberg goal, Gensel's tip. So the mistakes Washington made in the first period that cost the Capitals, they had a tracking problem on the Lilleberg goal, and also Lilleberg, it was almost like a change up, right? He didn't make full contact with the shot. I think that crossed up Logan Thompson. So they score there. Nobody is picking up Gensel on the penalty kill. I mean, Gensel, you watch that replay. There isn't a Caps defender. I mean, they're in the picture, but they're not close enough to do anything to Gensel, let alone tie up his stick. So he can move that stick. He's basically uncontested to tip it in. Those are 2 big mistakes. The winning goal, though, to me, that one's on Thompson. I mean, yes, Hagel takes the shot in the slot. It was a nice little zigzag play for James and Hagel, but the Caps are back defensively. I understand it's a shot in the middle of the ice. I think you need a save there from your goalie, who's arguably been your MVP this year.
He's played the best.
He's played the best. But that was one, I mean, I'm not saying he muffed it, but beat him glove side. Maybe he was screened a little bit by his defenseman, but that was not the same quality of a chance as the Lilleberg one. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And the Lightning, look, we talked about the Lightning are seeing these goalies earlier at like the end of October. It's like these goalies are playing out of their mind. Thompson played well, but, I would say that's probably a shot he stops more often than not. So he let it in. Shooting the puck yielded a result. It gave the Lightning the lead, and they were able to get that game across the finish line.
Let's see. Timothy says, hope McDonough doesn't have a broken foot. I'm surprised there isn't a better design boot to protect players' foot. Enjoy your show, guys, very much.
Yeah, we didn't know what
Appreciate
happened during the game, but afterward, Ed Encina actually had an article that was out yesterday. It said he blocked a shot. Ethan Frank, who was kind of been in and out of the lineup, he got hurt a little bit. He was back in. I thought he actually had a very good game. He had an assist on the Brandon Duhaime goal. He took a shot, McDonough blocked it, and then left. Yeah, I mean, I think they design the equipment to help players who block shots. But sometimes you find you being the shooter, they're not intending to have the shot blocked, but the puck can find an area where there's less protection. I mean, you can't wear a suit of armor and skate around the ice.
It's kind of like football.
You have to have flexibility to be able to do what you need to do when you're not blocking a shot.
It's like football, right? With the helmets that they're trying to design to lessen the impact when you do head to head, but it's hard to do, Parker. I mean, and the foot is the same thing in hockey. I mean, that is vulcanized rubber coming at you that is hard. I mean, there's only so much you can do. And let's just hope Mac's okay. And if he's not, then the Lightning have some options that are they able to weather that storm until, he would be coming back.
The team is not practicing today because it's Coop's Catch for Kids.
That's right.
So hopefully it's a great event. Certainly it's a clear day. I know it's a little chilly. I don't know what that means for the fish, but the team always enjoys.
It's going to be a little cold tonight. Water. Heading into tomorrow, partner. 37 overnight. Come on. What are we doing here? All right, stay warm. I don't mind it, by the way. I told you, I'm annoyed when I walk to the arena and I'm sweating.
Yes.
I get annoyed with that. I mean, that's just
I don't think that's going to happen on Wednesday.
I don't think it will. I mean, it's going to be cold in the arena. It's going to be cold outside. We got to make sure Phil is wearing the appropriate clothing.
Phil, I had predicted Phil would complain about the elevator. The elevator was not even working.
Yeah, that was
on Saturday. I'm not quite sure how Phil got upstairs.
He
found his way. He arrived just at the face-off, though, so that was impressive.
He's like, I feel a little out of sorts.
Did he say if he enjoyed the pregame out on the plaza? He didn't talk to me about it. So
yeah, I mean, I think he said it was fine.
Yeah,
I think he was just glad to be back in the booth. FK322 says very satisfied with the Lightning's play recently. Still would like a couple of guys to start scoring more, namely Point and Bjorkstrand. Concerned about injuries starting to pile up.
Yeah, I mean, knock on wood, fortunately it does not seem as though any of these injuries are serious, and I'm saying that understanding the McDonough situation is unknown. That would be a huge blow. But, the Cirelli-Crozier situation, because we didn't really get an update on either one until
I think Eric
Saturday.
asked about Crozier.
Yeah.
The post-scrum.
Yeah. So both of them are not, we'll call it not serious.
Yeah.
Maybe a game or two.
Injuries are part of it, and that is just it's the one great equalizer in sports. There's no question. Chris says, I thought Wilson would receive discipline for hitting Hagel in the crease.
Yeah, so that I can't remember if it was Eric Erlandson or Ed Encina referenced the hit as I think it was Eric may have used the word quote unquote scummy, which I believe that is a direct quote. That was not my word. And Hagel referenced it and said that he himself wasn't crazy about it. If you're watching us on a stream, you saw Hagel post-game had a cut on his lip that came from that play because he got checked basically into the net and into Logan Thompson. What I will say is this. Hagel had the puck. Hagel is eligible to be hit there. If you're Wilson, do you really want to make that hit, though, in that situation? Because Wilson is very lucky that his goalie did not get injured on that play. So the fan was writing about supplemental discipline. I mean, he wasn't even called for a penalty. The penalties that came out of that had to do with the scrum after the check, and Wilson didn't get a penalty. It was Finley and was it Ryan Leonard? Who was the other guy who got the penalty? Yeah, it was Leonard. And actually it was right before Carlson scored in the 4-on-4. It was that play. The hit was not an illegal hit. Hagel had the puck. He was eligible to be checked. But I think it's kind of like the place and the situation, not time, but place and situation. Like if you're Wilson, do you make that hit? Yes, you're checking a guy into the net, which is kind of sort of dangerous. But, I mean, Thompson was kind of a cushion in a way for Hagel. I mean, he still cut his lip. But we thought Thompson was injured It was that his skate blade was stripped.
One of the guys helping him off the ice was going like this. I'm waving forward to the people on the bench, which is when I said to Phil, skate. Because I agree with you. It looked like there was a serious leg injury, but he had a guy going, hey, get off the ice. So they, after speaking. But that hit
the only
Wilson,
thing I'll say about a penalty, like, could you have called a cross-check potentially? Like, you cross-check the guy into the net. That could have been a penalty. I thought it was a body check. I didn't think it was a cross-check. Fans may disagree. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I think Wilson's a smart player, but he's also obviously aggressive. And he clearly wasn't thinking what was going to happen to my goaltender after I run this guy through. Because that, I mean, you do. I mean, there's nowhere for the goaltender to go if you decide, and look, it's easier said than done, that I'm going to really decapitate Brandon Hagel. I mean, that's what it was. I mean, that was the intent was just to blow him up, and he did.
Did you think, had there been nothing with Thompson, do you think that was a penalty?
I did.
Okay,
now,
what's the penalty?
Is it roughing? I don't know. Is there interference?
I don't think you can get called for roughing for a body check, though. It's usually after.
Is it interference? Is it?
He had the puck.
Is it something? I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to look at it again. Maybe that's one of those where it wasn't a penalty, and maybe it was just because of the location.
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean it's a penalty. Maybe that's fair. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, yes, pushing a player into a post is dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's why Hagel said what he said afterward. I may be wrong. I mean, I'm just telling you how I saw it. Like, he checked the guy had the puck. What I took out of it was, why are you checking a guy right at your goaltender?
So that's fair. And that's why clearly he wasn't thinking about that. His job was basically to send Hagel into the second row. I mean, that's how I viewed it, because I mean, what's the one thing all players are cognizant of? Protecting their goaltender. Mm-hmm. And that was I think
that's why we don't see that play very often.
Correct.
A guy who is an offensive zone player positioned in front is not hit that hard in the direction of the net because the goalie is there. Maybe that's one reason why we don't see big hits there.
I think that's
or
fair.
If there is a big hit, it's more
fair.
To the side, right? Like you're
doubt.
pushing the guy away, right? Not toward the net.
Dio says, who was on the ice during the end game PK?
Well, it was PK for Washington. The Lightning were on the power play.
On a power play, right.
Yeah. So I remember when they started the power play, it was the regular unit. I remember
Cooch was out
thinking
there, right?
that. Yeah, they only had Radish.
Yeah.
But as they started to get more face-offs, I'm not entirely certain. Hagel and Kucherov were out there, and Hagel is not on the main unit now, the first unit. I can look it up. But they were going back and forth trying to, and Gensel was out there. Maybe it was Gensel, not Hagel. I'll look that up.
Well, and Kuch had to go disallowed, right?
Yeah, I remember for the first, but Kuch is out there when the other team pulls the goalie anyway. Right. I remember for the first face-off at the beginning of the power play, I remember noting it was the first unit. Like, it could have been a middle of the game power play, and the Lightning would have had that unit out there. But while we get to more questions, I'll take a look, because that's fairly easy to look up.
Thomas also weighs in, guys, how much of the execution can be attributed to the travel, as the team did not have the extra day off, which is the usual when coming back from a Western tilt? Kind of talked about
Well, I thought it was going to be a heavy lift.
Yeah.
Sometimes even if you get a couple of days, though, the first home game back after a long road trip is tricky. So, yes, I think it had an effect. By the way, I'm looking this up. Okay, penalty, there's a whole lot of play-by-play here because the Caps had all these shots and misses. So at the beginning of the power play for the Lightning, you had all right, this is the unit when the penalty was called. You had Point, Gensel, Bjorkstrand, Kucherov, Radish. That's exactly what I said. All right. Caps got the puck down the ice. They had two shots, Provis and Ovechkin, a miss from Roy. Chychrun had a shot on net, so those are your three shots. Lightning still had that same unit out there. Another missed net from Ovechkin. They had switched Radish for Hedman at that point. And when the goal was scored by Kucherov and then taken away, Gord had gotten on the ice. So I had said Hagel. It was not Hagel. Gord had switched for Point at some point.
Gotcha.
And I had said that Hedman switched for Radish. That is not true. Hedman switched for Bjorkstrand. So the Lightning got 2 defensemen out there. I think they understood that, like, this is just way too much activity in our end. And so they had the offside called on the Kucherov goal. And then coming out of that with 15 seconds left, they had Gergensons, Kucherov, Hagel, Hedman, and Chernak. So they basically, in the last 15 seconds, were just looking to lock it down. But they probably were thinking, a minute 38 left, let's win the face-off.
Yeah.
We got our power play unit out here. We don't even need to score, but let's just pass it around, control. We have the extra guy in the ice. It's not like the Caps can just send Logan Thompson off. They don't have the puck.
Sure.
And it's not in the other end. But as I said, the Capitals did quite well. Like in that is a tough situation. And they did about as well as you can do short of scoring to get the game tied.
Craig says, I see similarities between DeStew and Dan Boyle.
Yeah. I mean, they both have a slippery element to their game with the puck.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, DeStew may have a harder shot than Boyle.
Yeah.
Boyle was very effective at scoring, certainly. And maybe Boyle had, I mean, I saw more of Dan Boyle than DeStew. Boyle had the vision and was an extremely elite passer. I'm not sure if DeStew does all of that. But, I mean, there were a few years where Dan Boyle was considered, if not the best, one of the best offensive defensemen in the entire NHL.
So I was just going to ask you, how many years do you think legitimately you could put him in that discussion as one of the top 3 or 4 best offensive defensemen in the game?
One of the best? Probably 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, one of the best.
4 to 5 years, I would say.
It's always, he was the best. I
Right.
mean, that's, that's a little harder. But one of them, I mean,
Yeah.
that's where, I mean, like if we're going to start comparing,
So the year that the Lightning played the Devils in the first round and lost, not in 03, 07. They played them twice during that time period. In 03, the Devils went on to win the Stanley Cup, and that was a kind of a learning playoff loss for the Lightning. It doesn't always work out that way, but they took that loss and then won the Stanley Cup the next year. Then we missed a year. 05-06, they make the playoffs, lose to Ottawa in the first round. 06-07, they make the playoffs, lose to New Jersey in the first round.
Yeah.
That Lightning team, the depth that had helped them so much when they won the Cup, certainly, a lot of it had gone away. And John Tortorella, if you look at the time on ice the Lightning had for that season, that was the year that Vinny Lecavalier won the Rocket Richard with 52 goals. He had a great year. But the Lightning really loaded up the minutes on Lecavalier, St. Louis, Richards, and Boyle. And Dan Boyle was, I mean, he had to be one of the best at that point. Like, I would say it started for sure in 06-07, if not before then.
Yeah.
He was part of their Cup team and an important part of their Cup team.
Right.
But I would say 06-07, 07-08, a skate fell on him, on his hand in a preseason game in the locker room. It was a weird accident. He had a cut and missed a good portion of that season. And then by the next season, they'd moved him to San Jose. But San Jose won the President's Trophy that year.
Sure.
Got upset in the first round, but Boyle was a big part of that. Yeah. Right. And then, 09-10, they went deep in the playoffs. And San Jose, 10-11, they went deep in the playoffs. Boyle was their main defenseman. So, I mean, he missed basically the 07-08 season. But you want to say at least a year before then, and for sure 2 or 3 years after that.
Would you say he ends up being their second best offensive defenseman in team history? Behind Hetty?
Statistically, it's Kubina. But Kubi had a longer tenure with the Lightning.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
All the way around. Alan says, with James playing so well and Finley getting a chance, do Geeky and Chafee need to be concerned about coming back from Syracuse? That's got to make them work harder. There's no doubt.
Yeah, for Geeky and Chafee, you just have to worry about playing well. Play well. Go down there and play well. I think both have. Like Chafee had a goal. They had a tough weekend. They lost both games in Charlotte. So, I mean, that's a long trip for Syracuse. But I did see Chafee had a goal, and Geekie has been producing since he's been down there. You just got to play hard and try and grow your game and wait for your chance. It's kind of like we were talking about with Finley, being out of the lineup. Keep doing what you're doing and wait your turn.
When you put it like
numbers
that,
game, that's how you put it.
Yeah, when you put it like that, you can start really talking about the Lightning's depth. Because Geekie and Chafee are good players.
Yeah.
They are. They're good players. Mark says, who will be in goal against the Rangers?
Well, the Lightning have a back-to-back after that game, so I think Vasilevsky plays the game against the Rangers.
We'll talk about them, but boy, if they've been a
I mean, you probably think Vasi gets that Florida game on Saturday, and Johansson plays Sunday against Vancouver, which is a home game. Like, they're not traveling from Sunrise to Vancouver for a back-to-back. The league would not, as much as we can say, what is the league doing at the schedule? They would not schedule a back-to-back at Florida at Vancouver. Yeah, the Lightning host Vancouver on Sunday.
This will be a fun question here. Connor's Music Company. Funny story. I was on my way home from the Chicago game when I accidentally ran over a raccoon. Since then, the Lightning are 7-1. Coincidence? I think not. Did I accidentally make the sacrifice?
No comment on the specific element of that story, but I will say, like, how many people feel, and players do this too, like, isn't that what superstitions are about?
Oh, it is. 100%.
It's like, well, I do this, it's going to affect the outcome.
I used to do that when I, just playing sports in general in high school.
But you were actually involved in the game.
Involved, right. But I mean, I had that, I know fans, my uncle was big on this, where he would sit on the couch a certain way if there was a game going on. And if the Steelers were losing, he'd move to another couch. I'm sitting there going, what are you doing? What are you doing? But hey, look, if that gets you going, I'm okay. Tampa Bay says, what are the odds Sabourin and Douglas make the lineup Saturday night?
I would be
Good
surprised
question.
if Sabourin is recalled.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if Douglas is in the lineup Saturday, though.
Yeah.
Panthers are, they are also, right at Hockey 500, maybe a game above. But it has not been a smooth ride for them. I think they have another game out west. They play Vegas. They're going to be home. They play the Capitals before they see the Lightning. I think they may play Vegas tomorrow, and maybe it's tonight. I'm not sure. But, they went out to California. They lost 2 of 3. They lost to Anaheim and San Jose. A couple of years ago, it would be pretty rare for a team in the East to go to that California trip. You might lose 2 of 3, but the 2 of 3 that you would lose would be to the Sharks and the Ducks. That would be rare. Now, last year, the Lightning lost all 3 in California.
Right.
But I'm just saying, the Kings for a number of years have been the strongest of the 3 teams. Panthers beat the Kings, but they lost to the Ducks and they lost to the Sharks, who are both improved this year. The Ducks are playing very well. They just beat Winnipeg the other night.
That young talent's starting to figure it out.
Yeah, Leo Carlson, I think, has 10 goals now.
Yeah.
It is pretty neat to see, so we'll say the high draft picks recently are near the top of the scoring list in the NHL, talking about Celebrini with San Jose, Bedard with Chicago, Carlson, who was a number 2 overall pick with Anaheim, and then McKinnon. McKinnon has just been, he has been
He's a great player.
a one-man wrecking crew. Not one man. Colorado is a very, very good team. You see they beat Edmonton in Edmonton 9-1.
That's a lot of goals in a game.
Yeah, and then they beat Vancouver, I think, in overtime. And that was a back-to-back. So they beat Vancouver in overtime 5-4. McKinnon had 5 points.
McDavid, McKinnon, and Kucherov, if they keep this pace up scoring-wise, they're going to be in that top 15 of all time in all-time scoring. Mm-hmm. That's kind of their trajectory right now.
But if you're Edmonton, you're like, we've been to the Cup final 2 years in a row. This is going to be the year, right? This is going to be the year. This is maybe the team that you're going to have to beat. Maybe. Yeah. It's early. Maybe in the West. You're like, to get back to the final, we're going to have to beat Colorado. They come into your barn. They've gotten off to a great start. Only 1 regulation loss. And they put 9 on you in your building. 9-1.
Where's Jack? Can we talk to Jack?
They're slow. Get him out of
of here.
And so I don't know if you saw this. So Toronto is hanging in there. Like Toronto's one of these teams too. Like they're whatever they are, 8-7-2 or something like that. So they've won some games. But I was wondering, like, what would this look like once you're pulling Marner out? Now, Marner is not known as like a shutdown defender, but he's a good player. He's very sneaky. He takes pucks away. He penalty kills as well as, produces on the power play. I don't know if it's Marner or what's going on. We haven't seen the Leafs. They had a 4-2 lead at home against Carolina. Carolina scored, it was in the second period. Carolina scored 1 before the second period ended to make it 4-3. They scored 2 in the third to win in regulation 5-4. That is a regulation loss at home for Toronto, where they had a 2-goal lead in the second period, a 1-goal lead going into the third, and shots in the third period, Greg, I kid you not, in Toronto, 22-2 Carolina. Now, we've seen Carolina do this to teams. Usually it happens when they are at home. It can happen when they are on the road. But, I mean, it's not like the Toronto media to overreact to one game or fans to overreact. I mean, we see it sometimes when the Lightning have a clunker. We have fans that, are saying, what do we make of this? What do you think the Toronto media and the fan base is making of a game in which they got outshot 22-2 in the third period at home and blew what was a 2-goal lead and lost in regulation? I think I saw a quote from Berube saying, like, we are just not focused enough on defense, and that's his bread and butter. So that'll be an interesting kind of trajectory storyline. One of many, in the NHL this year, as some teams start elevating, maybe some teams are going to struggle to maintain their position where they were. Anyway, Lightning don't see the Leafs until December, but I noted that box score, and I was like, wait a minute, what happened here? Shots for the game were like 47-20 Carolina. So 22-2 in the third period will do that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Partner, good job. We'll do it again tomorrow.
We are pre-taping tomorrow due to some scheduling logistics, but the team is scheduled to practice after we are off the air. But they will be on the ice tomorrow. So hopefully some of the injured guys will all be able to participate.
Appreciate you, partner.
Yeah, you
Great
too.
job as always. Thanks to Steve Ersnick. Thanks to everybody for listening. We always appreciate you guys. I'm Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.